crowdfunding in general, I'm really excited I was introduced to it because I feel like it aligns really well with the company's values. It is community-based. It brings people together to create a movement for whatever that company's vision is, a new way for people to take on their lives. And so bringing the community together was already something that was really important to me.
That's Arya Mazanek, and this is the Powerful Ladies Podcast. Hey guys, I'm your host, Cara Duffy, and on this episode, I get to nerd out about two of my favorite things, being a CEO and tiny homes. And that's because today's guest is Arya Mazanek, CEO of Wilderwise Tiny Homes. We chat all about what makes the tiny home movement a powerful and smart solution, what it's really like to be a CEO, and how building something that aligns with your values allows you to apply yourself in each step of the process at a whole new level. Before we jump into this episode, I wanted to remind you to come and join my Powerful Ladies Thrive membership. The best way to ensure you live your dream life and have your dream business is to have a community and a coach that will help you get there. And that's exactly what Thrive is for. Join us today at thepowerfulladies.com and jump right into our twice weekly group coaching sessions and our workshops. All of March, we are discussing how to design, hire, and build teams, and how building a team is the fastest way to 10x your revenue. I can't wait to see you there. Well, welcome to the Powerful Ladies Podcast. I'm so happy to have you today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
I would love to begin. Please tell everyone, what is your name and what are you up to in the world?
My name is Arya Mazanek. And right now, I think the big thing I'm up to is launching my business. Launching is kind of a loose term because my business launched a few years ago, but we're coming up to a big milestone in finishing our first product, which is a highly engineered tiny house. So it's taken about 4 years to get it from design to production. And that's what I spend most of my time on. So that's what I'm up to.
I am so excited to talk to you today about tiny houses because it's one of my small obsessions. I watch everything I can about them. I'm reading everything I can about them. I want one. So I'm really excited to talk about that. And I know that a lot of people in the Powerful Ladies community are also really excited to talk about how you start a business like this and the funding behind it. So there's lots of questions I'll have about your business, but I would love to know from you first, why tiny houses?
It's a good question. So I guess my first experience with tiny houses was when I moved into a 180 square foot studio with my boyfriend. It was actually just a few months after we had started dating. So we kind of jumped right into it. I thought it was going to be a short-term experience, like we were going to move out pretty soon after. We ended up living in this space for about 3.5 years. So I got very familiar with living in a small space and finding ways to utilize the space in a productive way, needing less, getting rid of things. And when I met the co-founder of my company, he had designed this tiny house, and the kind of the ethos behind it was to create an alternative living space for people that they could travel, they could have more freedom, they could live debt-free, simplify their lives. And that also offered an opportunity for me to take on a career opportunity that matched up really well with kind of what I had envisioned for myself for a long time. I wanted the opportunity to travel and to be my own boss. And I mean, the tiny house in itself, it's intrinsically travel oriented. So it wasn't just like, oh, I have a job that allows me to travel. It's like my job is traveling in the product I'm promoting. So it's kind of like a seamless integration of, what you're doing and how you do it and how you can share that with the world. So, and of course, they're all, tiny houses are really cute. People love them. And so it's really fun talking about it. And I really look forward to being able to travel around and connect with people and to share in that sentiment that we all share. I think it's actually really it hits close to home for most people, even if they don't realize it, simplifying one's life and getting closer to their values. And I think tiny living, it can be a catalyst for that. So I connect a lot with that, and I love to be able to be a part of that movement.
Mm-hmm. I love them for so many reasons, right? Like I've always been someone who is like purge happy. Like I equally am a Girl Scout and want to be prepared, but I also hate having stuff. So just the challenge of downsizing to me sounds so exciting. That might mean I'm masochistic, but I like the idea of having to like really choose what's in my life and what's not from a tangible things perspective. I also really love the art project that is a tiny house, of figuring out how you use a space and how to craft it so that your lifestyle fits in that little space, because it really is possible. And I, of course, love all the benefits you get from the financial side. Like we spend so much money on housing, especially here in California. And to be able to have a tiny house that you can either be debt free on, buying full out, or having really small payments on. There's so much built-in freedom to that. It's like the fastest way to increase your income is not to have these crazy high expenses. So I'm trying really hard to convince Jesse to build a tiny house. So I think it would just be fun in so many ways. And then we essentially would have like a traveling podcast studio, which is a dream of mine.
Yes.
I just think it's so fascinating, and that more and more people are doing it for so many different reasons. I also have seen all of the like tiny house little villages or neighborhoods that are getting created. There's some great ones in Austin that's actually for veterans that was built recently, and they have a lot of very cool shared spaces. There's a company in Oregon that's creating whole little communities of permanent tiny homes. So I think it's really fascinating where the space is going right now. When you're talking to people out on the road and like presenting this idea, like what kind of reactions are you getting?
I've gotten a lot of positive reactions, I'm happy to say. I mean, the movement, like you said, has been growing a lot recently because of the rise of these TV shows and just the need for it. And the housing industry currently, it's just skyrocketing prices. People can't afford it. And then also like the van life, RV lifestyle is also growing, partly because of COVID, but it had already been growing prior to that. And so with those two things combined, I think a lot of people are, seeing tiny houses not just as a trend anymore, but actually as a long-term solution for a number of reasons. Our product is really unique. I don't know if I didn't mention the company name. So it's called Wilderwise, Wilderwise Homes, Wilderwise Tiny Homes. And what we're doing is really different than what a lot of companies are doing. So we have a lifting roof mechanism that creates a second story. The home is built in a modular way so that it can be taken apart, put back together. Add-on kits can be included and added onto over time. We're incorporating a lot of different sustainable systems, and we're making it to be as lightweight as we can make it while still being a fully insulated, full-time home. And so a lot of those features people haven't seen before. And so they start off by just being excited about tiny houses. Like, for instance, at a trade show, they're there to learn about tiny houses. And then they come to our booth and they start learning about what we have. And a lot of people are just totally blown away. They're like, they'd never heard of anything like it. And it kind of like opened up a whole new world of possibility for, what a tiny house can be, what it can be used for. And it's really cool. I've actually had people tell me that they had been, this is a few different people, and this is probably one of my favorite conversations I have, is people saying that they've been researching tiny houses for, 2 years. They've scoured the internet. They've talked to as many people as they can. And they had recently found our product, or maybe they had just found it when they met me. And it was everything they were looking for. It checked all the boxes, and they were just in shock that it existed because, they had been looking for things and finding bits and pieces, but never all in one package. So it's always really encouraging, especially when, growing and starting a business can be so challenging, to have like a conversation like that. It helps to boost the inspiration and motivation to keep going and doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, and it's you bring up a lot of great points and all the research you have to do because every county and state has different rules about what's approved for a tiny house or not,
Mm-hmm.
what you need to include regulation wise, where you can put them.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many different things, and everyone's lifestyle is so different. So I love the fact that you guys have the lifting roof, right? Because you really get a full second story versus
Mm-hmm.
a loft, and then also the fact that you can add on to it. One of my favorite tiny houses that I've seen, I'm a huge fan of Living Big in a Tiny Home or Tiny House on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And they have a woman who built her tiny house, then already added on a little cube. And I love that you have the ability to do add on kits because you never know what you're going to need in a
Mm-hmm.
year from now. And why should you have to, get a new tiny house? You can just kind of expand onto it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like someone who is like me, I guess I'm basing it off of that because it's interesting how I actually fit really closely into our target market. So I have my own insight into what people want and it matches up really
Mm-hmm.
well. But yeah, it's like someone may want to use it as an ADU, accessory dwelling unit in their backyard. So maybe it's permanent for a few years, but things can change and they maybe want to move across the country or live in RV parks for a few years. And if that's the case, there's different needs and, on a practical sense, like the electrical system may need to be slightly different, or you may need to have that little bit of extra space in one case or the other. And yeah, so I mean, life is constantly throwing curveballs, and we want to make it so people can handle that and adapt because their home's adaptable too. And I think that would make those transitions a lot easier.
Well, and you also mentioned how expensive homes are today, right? We have a housing crisis, we have a homelessness crisis in the US, especially on the West Coast. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of action happening from a government perspective to figure out solutions. And so I really love seeing companies like yours showing that there's so many alternative ways to make a house that's safe and warm and checks all the boxes you need in, Maslow's hierarchy of needs and looks great. Like, it's not like it's a tiny house and it's a steel square and there's no personality and there's no sunlight. Like, that's not at all what a tiny house is. And in fact, most of them get so creative because you have so many options in a small space to express yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting to, like you said, it's built differently. It's a different home building technique. And it has taken several years for us to get to the point where we can actually produce the home. And I think that's probably why a lot of companies don't endeavor to take on like new techniques like that, because it's true. It's like there's tried and true practices that work, but they have their downfalls. You can still sell them. The demand is there. But I always had a dream of creating something that could change the world in some way. I didn't know what it was at the time since I was, 15 or something. And this opportunity came up, and it's a huge endeavor. I mean, when I first started, I had no idea how challenging it would be. And now looking back on all of the progress we've made, it's interesting to see what it takes to really bring like new technology to the market. It takes a lot of, it takes a team of people that get along and that are passionate about it and see the solution and can see the long-term goal, because in the short term, there's so many reasons to quit. But in the long term, you see the vision, you see what's possible, and especially to like get other people to share that vision and to want to commit their time to it. That's, the only way you can make it happen. And so it's been really great to see it grow. It's still, it's still growing. It's there's still a lot more to do, and it's a huge challenge, but the learning experience through all of it and holding that vision really close is super important. That's what keeps me going every day.
Well, and part of how we got recently reconnected, because obviously we know each other through our boyfriends, and is because you did an investment round through Start Engine. And there's so many people who are in the Powerful Ladies community or clients of mine who are currently exploring getting investors, that are exploring creating shares in their company. How did you choose to go down that path, and what made you choose Start Engine?
Up until we started raising on Start Engine, most of our funds was through private investment rounds. Our chairman, who is also my cousin, has a business background, really, really intelligent guy, really good-hearted person. He got on board back in 2017 and was kind of putting in infusions of cash to get us to the next milestone. And we kind of got to a point where he's like, well, we need to find, other funding sources. We were getting really close to this, our prototype, our production model being completed. And around the same time, I had someone contact me on, from one of our contact forms on the website. And she was really excited. She was like, I want to come to Southern California. I want to meet you. I'm like really excited about what you're doing. And so we ended up having a call, and she asked me if I had ever heard of, I think she mentioned another platform as well as Start Engine. And she's, have you ever heard of it? Have you ever considered funding on it? And I looked it up. I was like, oh, this is really cool. I've never heard of this before. And maybe I had, but it had never really sunk in of what it was or that I could ever be involved in it. And she said that she regularly invests on those platforms. And she said, if you guys launched on Start Engine, I would be your first investor. And so that was, that kind of was the foundation for me starting to look into it and see what was possible. So I applied to a few different platforms, ended up going with Start Engine, partly because this woman who had introduced me to it, she was able to look at a few other platforms. So she's like, I like Start Engine the best. It's the easiest to review, like the way that they portray the companies and how it's organized is just easier for an investor to like understand what the investment is and why I'd want to invest in this company. Some of the other platforms, it's not as user-friendly. And I found that they were kind of like hold your hand along the whole process because the onboarding is very extensive. They require tons of documentation. Everything needs proof. And they go into a level of detail that like I had not ever considered, the questions they would ask. So they really help you along the whole process. And the final like campaign page that's created is really well structured. I've had people say like they've read through it and it just, everything made total sense. It explained what the problem and the solution was, what you guys are doing and why. And, it's enjoyable to read through and to learn about the company. So I like that about Start Engine. And yeah, we launched in January and we've been doing good so far. And I think it's really crowdfunding in general. I'm really excited I was introduced to it because I feel like it aligns really well with like the company's values. It is community based. It brings people together to create a movement for whatever that company's vision is. And that is already inherent in what we were doing already is trying to create a movement of this new housing trend. It's, like I said, not really a trend anymore, but is a new way for people to take on their lives. And so bringing the community together was already something that was really important to me. And like you said, tiny house communities are popping up everywhere. So it's very based in like creating meaningful relationships and having that shared value. And so crowdfunding, I thought was perfect. It aligned really well with kind of what we were already doing and made that process pretty seamless. So I'm glad that we took that route. It's been really great. I've also tapped into a whole new market of people since launching. I've gotten so many more requests from people, I guess, that I didn't know this, but people I maybe keep a tab open for Start Engine and new companies pop up and they're always checking back to like learn more about these startup companies. So it's been great to be able to connect with more people and reach a greater audience through that.
Yeah, no, Start Engine does a great job. I get emails at least once a week of other companies I might want to invest in based on having invested in yours. And so like, oh, you might like this one too, or this one. And so they do a really good job of helping to promote who's in there. The process was super easy But I also like that, most people don't think that they can be a CEO. Most people don't think that they can be an investor in a company. And Start Engine
Mm-hmm.
actually breaks down that investment barrier because you're able to, depending on how you set it up, you can have investments that are really affordable for people. And
Mm-hmm.
it allows more people to contribute to you than would otherwise in private funding rounds. And so,
Yeah.
like you said, I love that feature of so many more people can be an investor because they don't need to find, I think it's 150,000 is the normal private investor milestone in other avenues. So
Mm-hmm.
most people don't have that extra money to throw around, but they do have, 10,000, 5,000, 500, whatever the prices are that we set. And so it's very cool to allow people to not just buy stocks and things they believe, but really invest in a company that matters to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And when you get in early, it tends to, uh, it's inspiring for people. If they put in $250 or whatever that minimum is into a company, it's not like it breaks the bank, but they get to be a part of something from the very beginning. And that in itself is just, it's inspiring. It keeps
Mm-hmm.
people excited about these new technologies and these new ventures. And you can easily put little bits of money into a number of different companies and feel like you're part of something bigger. And that's why companies launch on those platforms, and that's why people are on those platforms. I mean, it used to be, I think it was 2012, the Jobs Act passed that allowed equity crowdfunding. In the past, you had to be what's called an accredited investor, which means
Mm-hmm.
basically that you're very wealthy. I think you have to have a $1 million net worth or make $200,000 a year over a course of a few years. So like that rules out most people.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a really recent thing, and it's been growing and growing ever since it became a possibility for people, because it's just exciting. I mean, it's exciting for me. It's exciting for people like you that invest, and yeah, I love being a part of the movement.
Mm-hmm. Many people who I interact with through Powerful Ladies, either as clients or on the podcast, they are the ones that had the vision for their company and created it. But you have a really unique thing where people kind of came to you with this opportunity. How has it been being a CEO, kind of merging with other people and this whole idea for the company? And what surprised you the most about being a CEO?
Um, Good question. So I I am not an inventor type. I'm not an engineer. I'm more of a people person. I'm a creative thinker, problem solver. I had known I wanted to kind of create something of my own for a long time. That got kind of reinvigorated when I took an entrepreneurship class in college. It was probably one of my favorite business school classes. And but I didn't really have like a product or service idea. That had always been kind of the barrier for me, is like, I want to create something, I just don't know what to
Mm-hmm.
create. That's not really my line of expertise. And so when I connected with my co-founder, who's an engineer, and eventually developed an engineering team and like a team of people, it created that catalyst for being able to do what I wanted to do. Take a product from like infancy, its concept, and to take it to where it is now and beyond. So for me, the parts of starting a business, such as creating the business plan, finding investors, hiring people, creating the brand identity, launching the social media, all of those things, that's what I see as a strength of mine. And so I was able to take a product that I really believed in, that aligned really well with my values, and create a company out of it. And what's really great is that, my values and what I believe in are probably the most important thing to me. And I've always wanted those to be exemplified in anything that I do. And so in being a CEO of a startup company, I had the opportunity to create the brand in alignment with my values. So it's very true to my heart. It's not something that I'm creating to, I don't know, that's some sort of facade. It's also not for me. it's for other people, but I know that like the values that I have, I know they can help people. And so this was the way that I was able to, share what's important to me and share what I believe is important for the world through a product that is perfectly aligned with those things. And I believe that I'm a good leader. I can bring people together. I work well in a team. It's been that way since I was in school. I was always like the team leader in group projects. And so I really enjoy working with the team, even though now like all of my team that I work with, they're engineers. I'm not an engineer, but I can still like work very closely with them. I can, tie in the technical things to what customers want and to align it with the brand. And so pulling all those things together, like synthesizing ideas is kind of the basis of most of the work I do. Taking like huge projects and being able to break it down, understand the steps and to understand what's needed. And I think that's definitely a huge part of what I do and how it's been for me.
Mm-hmm. And when you like look back at your journey now, or does it surprise you that this is where you've landed, or would 8-year-old you like be like, of course, that's where you ended up?
I would lean towards the latter, that 8-year-old me would see this as being where I ended up. At that point, when people would ask me like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? I don't ever remember having like a very solid answer. It wasn't ever like, I want to be this or that. I knew that, I think it was probably around that age, 8 or 10 or something, that I knew I wanted to create something. I wanted it to benefit humanity. I wanted it to protect the earth in some way, some sort of job or, creation that would support the health of the planet and the people on it. And I have a very distinct memory of like that thought and it being like, this is my reality. This is what's true to me. And this is what I'm going to do. I just never knew how that was actually going to unfold. So when this opportunity came up and then over the last few years, it's very much aligned with that. It's like it matches all of the things I dreamed about, but just never knew how it would play out in reality. So,
no, very cool. As CEO, what does a regular week look like for you?
So every week is a little bit different, but consistently I am working on my computer. I have to take breaks regularly to kind of keep myself staying focused, take some time walking outside. Being on the computer can be really draining. But typically, it's a lot of communication with people via email, via Facebook, via our search engine page. I really look forward to when I'm not glued to my computer all the time. Right now, I actually didn't know that it would, this is probably pretty normal. You start a company and you don't really know what's in store for you. I didn't know I'd be sitting on my computer hours and hours every day for several years, but this is the work that has to be done to get to what is my dream job, which is kind of what I foresaw when I first started on this, which is when the product is complete. It's the show model. I get to travel around in it. I get to go to trade shows and parks and have a blog and a vlog. I get to show people what's possible and just, do what I love and show people that, they have the opportunity to do what they love and kind of share that vision. So that's my dream job, which I foresee happening in the next few months. So I've been working for 4 years now to get to a point where that's a reality. And I'm sure I'll still be in my computer quite a lot, but it's nice to have a little bit of change of pace. Although I've definitely love having the freedom of the, laptop lifestyle where you can bring your computer anywhere and be able to work and it's all right there. And that's something it's just great because I can, take a weekend trip and as long as I've access to the internet, I can work and then enjoy being somewhere, in the evenings or whatever it might be. So I love that freedom and I really look forward to having even more freedom once we hit our next milestone and have our product ready to show.
Yeah. I've definitely built my company so that I have freedom of location. Whenever I was working in a corporate environment, I always did my best to use it to see the world and travel. And it's still limiting, right? When you're on somebody else's schedule and working on somebody else's needs. So the freedom piece is such an important thing for me and how I structure my businesses. So I totally understand.
Yeah.
When you think of the words powerful and ladies, what do they mean to you individually and what do they mean to you together?
Individually, I would say, so the word powerful, when I think of powerful in this sense, I think of the word empowered. I think a lot of times, I know it's not in this context, powerful ladies, because I'll get to that, what it means when it's together. But the word powerful tends to, relate to like this power hungry feeling and having control over people. Whereas in the sense of powerful ladies, I see it more as empowered women that take on big projects against all odds and can, stay true enough to themselves to take those next steps and grow and break through that glass ceiling in ways that, so many women never had the opportunity to, or the opportunity wasn't really there as much as it is now. And I've definitely had a number of experiences where I felt empowered as a woman in the business world, because it's true. It's definitely dominated by men, as most industries are. I've definitely had people, I think, doubt my capabilities because I'm a woman, and seeing that and, witnessing that has kind of motivated me to become truer and truer to myself and have a stronger sense of self, so that when those situations come up, which I'm sure that you've experienced, I'm sure that all the people on your podcast have experienced, you are forced to just get closer to your own power, your inner power, and what you're capable of. And that you have that ability to go above and beyond and to create something really magnificent. And so those times when, you're shot down or you're doubted or you're just kind of like brushed aside because, why listen to this woman? Like, she doesn't know anything kind of sentiment. You take that and you turn it into fuel for, creating your next big thing. And sometimes it can be fun to like surprise people by, something you say or something that you do, and kind of get that shock that, this little woman has, created something so huge, and that is empowering, and that, continues to fuel the excitement and the desire to create something really, really meaningful, just in a space where it's not as expected. And it is becoming, of course, the opportunities are becoming more and more there for women, and minority groups too. But it's, there's still a certain level of as us being seen differently and maybe not as capable. So I love being a part of that, that drive, and a group of women that, want to shatter those expectations and like really do something big in the world. And there's so many women that are doing that right now. And it's really inspiring to be one of those, and to know others that are too.
Speaking of that, who are some of the women who have inspired you along the way? Those you know, or those you just know from afar?
So I guess a more recent person, AOC in the political spectrum. She's always an inspiration to me. Just what she's done in from where she's come from, where she's gotten to in such a short amount of time, and how she's kind of addressed these huge issues and taking them on so strongly is super inspiring, especially at such a young age. Another thing that comes to mind is a movie I saw a few years ago, Hidden Figures, about the women in NASA. Yeah, I started watching it, and I didn't have any background on it. I didn't look up what the movie was. I think I saw the cover. I was like, this looks really great. And so those women really inspired me. I mean, they created something so astounding at a time when women, especially Black women, we're not seen as capable or able to be in that realm, or to be so intelligent and these masterminds. And so that I'm like getting chills just thinking about it, because, that sets the stage for now that there are much bigger opportunities for women. It's so inspiring to think of like these women that really had everything going against them, that made such a huge shift in like a huge industry, like, space travel and learning about our universe. So that's like really, really awesome to me.
Yeah. No, and it's perfect because, we're approaching International Women's Day, which is always such a big event at Powerful Ladies. It's kind of when we tie big milestones. Our podcast got released 2 years ago tomorrow. And it's all aligned with that. Yeah. And our theme for this year is never underestimate a powerful lady. And I just felt like after the year we had, and I mean, we were doubting everything at some point. We were doubting social structures. We've been doubting our ability to, be resourceful when we're on our own or isolated. We've been doubting if our businesses could survive or not. And so, we talked a lot about having the 4 Ps of pandemic last year of pause, prioritize, prune, and pivot. But really, at the end of the day, like, we all had to persevere. And so I'm sure people think I'm insane adding another P to this group, but there's something really at the root of being a powerful lady, that perseverance is so important, because so often it's not because we want to win or be competitive. It's because there's no other option that we see. Like, of course we have to make it work. And I really see that in the characters from Hidden Figures. Like, it wasn't that they were out to break barriers because that was their goal. They were just really out to do the thing that they couldn't sleep at night unless they did it that way. It was just intrinsic to who they were. And I love stories like that. And that's, why I started this podcast as well, because there's so many incredible women like yourself who are doing things that, people don't know are happening. And I just want to shadow or remove the shadow and shine the spotlight on these incredible women, because there's so many people every day getting up and choosing to do it no matter what. And because of that, there's this whole ripple effect of what's happening. I talked to a friend of mine recently, and we always go back and forth about calling this powerful ladies and not powerful humans, and why. And he's from Peru, and he brought up this point of, as much as it feels like there's progress in the US, like, there's so not the same magnitude of progress other places. And it was really interesting to see his perspective of like, don't give up on just the powerful ladies yet, because we need everyone, until everyone hears this and it echoes back, like, we're not done yet. And I really like that perspective as well.
Yeah. I think it's important to focus on, it kind of reminds me of the concept of Black Lives Matter, like focusing on a group that, needs that focus. If it's just powerful humans, then, although I'm sure that would be an amazing podcast, it's really important to focus on the groups that are, that need the burst, the inspiration. I mean, I'm sure you've gotten plenty of comments from people that listen to your podcast that are so touched by, specifically because it's focused on women. I'm reading this book called Playing Big by Tara Moore. It's a really excellent book, and it's focused on women. So I think it could be useful for anybody, but she specifically focuses on women. And if she didn't, it really wouldn't be that powerful of a book. I'm sure it would. I'm sure she would find a way to make it a good book, but because it's focused on that, it really hits home the things she says, and that's where the value is in it. And there's tons of books, I'm sure, that are written about men, so we got to get our fair share too.
We do. We absolutely do. The other big topic for us in the month of March we're talking about teams. So all the workshops I'm doing, our group discussions in our women's entrepreneur group Thrive, we're all talking about how to create teams, why we need teams. My favorite statistic is just revenue based, right? The average solo entrepreneur in the US, their revenue is going to be about $46,000. The second you have a team of 4, it goes to over $400,000.
Wow.
So the fastest way to 10x your business is to build a team. And you, of
Mm-hmm.
course, have been building teams. So when you're building teams, what are you looking for, and how are you adding people, into this bubble of a business that you love so much? And, how do you go about that? How do you choose the right people?
Yeah, so the first thing that comes to mind is I don't know where I learned this. Someone told me, or it was in a book, but the way to build a good team is to hire people that are smarter than you. And so that really stuck with me, because I think a lot of times if you're if a leader is in a certain mental space, they want to be in control, like they want to have the power, they want control. They may hire people that they can have control over, but then you're not really getting people that are going to, take the company to the next level. And so the way to do so is to bring in people that have skill sets that are either really different than yours, so it diversifies the team, or bring in people that are just really smart and smarter than you and can do a better job than you. And that, I have no issue with that. Bring in someone that, they have a skill set or an expertise that is greater than mine, or different than mine, because that's what we need to make the team better. Like I said, our team is mostly engineers, so it's definitely different than my skill set. But I love, communicating with people and learning a lot more about things that I don't know about. I love learning. I think we learn really well from one another, and being able to find ways to communicate, bridging the gap between the kind of creative personable side of things, the people person type, versus the technical engineering type, and finding ways to bridge that gap. I think that in doing so, that's what makes the team really strong. And I really look forward to continuing to grow the team. Right now, it's myself mostly running the company. My cousin John, he's kind of an advisor, mentor, and he handles some aspects, but he has a full-time job as well. So he's less hours than me, where I'm doing this full time. I really look forward to growing the team in the work areas that I'm doing, so I can kind of not be spread so thin and all those things, and find people that are really good at the things that I struggle with, but I make do because I have to. But I'm really looking forward to focusing on the things that I love and that I'm really good at and that inspire me daily, and then delegating the things that I'm not as good at to someone who does love that and who really can take it on and find ways to be creative and just take it to another level, because, one person can only do so much, and do the best they can. And the certain aspects, it's like, I don't expect myself to all of a sudden become this like expert accountant. Like, I need someone to be able to handle that side of things, or do the analytics that for me may take hours and then take 10 minutes, So that's one of our next steps, definitely, once we get this product completed and we start to work off of revenue, is to bring in a few key team members to help with the process. So I have my sights set on that. I'm really excited to start growing the team in that way.
Well, and you said such great things as well, right? Of course, hiring people who are experts in their spaces, smarter than we are. But you also mentioned like really being able to be in your zone of genius, so that you can do things quickly and happily, and build the team around who's already there and what strengths are. There's so many CEOs that I work with, and I have to keep using the phrase, just because you could doesn't mean you should. Like, everyone is smart enough to learn almost every part of business now because of Google and YouTube and teachers and courses. Like, there's so much knowledge out there. And we often feel like we have to do it all by ourselves. And I love that stat of, the 10xing revenue just by team members, because it reminds us, not only are we not supposed to create a business by ourselves, like we shouldn't. Like, it's silly for us to do it by ourselves. Plus, in my opinion, it's just not as much fun. Like, it's fun having a team. It's fun collaborating with people. And it's really enjoyable when you get to see other people as excited about what you're creating as you are, and to see them build off of that. Like, it's inspiring to me to see people on my team running with something and taking it places I never would have thought of, but it's in the same spirit that we share. Like the why is the same. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I remember when I first started working on this project and I was talking to my parents and I was so excited. I remember saying something like, you know, along the lines of like, I'm going to do it all. Like, I'm going to create this. I'm going to run it. I'm going to do this. And it's like, it was all focused on like all the things I was going to do and how it was going to be like my project. And now when I look back on that, of course, in a certain sense, yes, I have put in so many hours. I've put in so much of my heart and soul into it. But at the same time, I definitely couldn't have done it all myself. And, you know, the more we've been able to grow our team, the more we have had success. I mean, it's very simple. I mean, there's no other way to look at it. It's bringing those different people on has made a world of difference. And now I think about it, it's like, I would not have wanted to try to do this all myself, even if it was possible, which I don't think it would have been. But even if it was, doing it all yourself can be, you know, it can be detrimental. I've definitely gotten into modes where my mental health goes into a decline because I try to take on too much. I feel like the weight of the world is on me. It's so heavy. And then your productivity just kind of gets zapped. Like I've gotten to a point where I feel like I can't think, I can't work. Everything is hard and heavy. And I think that's because I take on too much and I can be a perfectionist. I want it all to be perfect and I want to, you know, have the control because I believe that what I do is good. But at the same time, like allowing other people to take that on and to like kind of spread the responsibility in a team that trusts each other and, you know, is really working together is so much more powerful, so much more productive, and is, you know, much more mentally and emotionally calming and good for like the soul to do it that way. So there's a lot of benefits and a number of different different arenas. So teamwork is so valuable. And I love that stat. I love that you shared that because I had never heard that and it totally makes sense.
And it keeps going up. It's a stat from the Small Business Association. And the bigger your team, the more money that you average. And of course, there's barriers, right, to being able to afford people and how do you bridge that gap. And we're going to be covering that in our workshop on the 11th of March. But there's so many ways to get there. But just knowing that having a team actually gives you access to the vision that you have for the business and allows you to be sane, right? Like we're not called the, Powerful Ladies CEO Club. We're called Powerful Ladies Thrive because we want, my coaching philosophy for business owners is that you'll never be happy as a human if all you're doing is the business and the business is running you. So how do we put those things in place where you get to be the best version of yourself and have the business work the way you want it to? Like, especially female entrepreneurs, we are so good at strong suiting everything and just like pushing through and staying late. And it's like, why? Like Oprah doesn't do that. Like, does Oprah work hard? 100%. But 99% of the tasks that happen at Oprah's company, Oprah is not doing. Like it'd be silly. Not only is she the most expensive person on the team, like her talents would be wasted if she was replying to emails all day long.
Right. Very true. And that idea of like staying late and the business kind of becoming my life, that definitely has happened. It's something that I have to constantly, check myself on. And I think it is specifically with women too, because there's a certain feeling that we have to prove ourselves or that we have to take on more there. Yeah. Because of how women have been treated throughout history and it's becoming more equal now, but there's a certain drive to just go above and beyond in every category. I think I was like that in school too. And so finding that work-life balance is so key. I went through, many months of kind of back and forth of business being everything and kind of forgetting to put a time into the other things that mattered to me, exercising, getting good sleep and my relationships with my family and my friends and my partner. and, taking time to read and to just be with myself. And when I don't take that time, it really becomes miserable. Like I can't really work as well. It affects, not only my work, but my relationships and just the way I feel when I wake up in the morning. And that is not healthy. And so it's a constant, checking myself, because I always will have the tendency to just power through, get as much done as I can, finish the to-do list, all those things. But in the end, I mean, the business is the business, but your life is greater than that. And in 20 years from now, I probably won't be working on the same business. I'll be doing something else. So to forego like my mental health in the meantime was going to have far greater detriment to who I am as a person and, my relationships later on. So I've been really keeping that in mind, especially recently as things are, building and heating up and getting more and more kind of intense and exciting, to really make sure that I take time for myself and remain calm and really prioritize time for myself so that I can stay fresh and, stay inspired, because it's easy to kind of let that slide and just be working as if you're a computer, like you're a human computer and not like a human working on a computer. Someone mentioned to me, we were talking about work-life balance, and he also mentioned the concept of work-life harmony as kind of an alternative. And that really hit home for me too, because when you're running a business and it does kind of become your whole life, it's hard. You can't really find balance per se, because the business is still going to be a part of what you're doing, even when you're not working. So to find a harmony where you can be working, but still remain at peace with yourself, still give time to others, and allow it to kind of just fuse in this like a synergy. That's what I'm going for. That's what I practice.
Yeah. Well, and I've told, many people, like even the phrase work-life balance, like makes me crazy, because it assumes that life is not work and work is not life, when really it's
Right.
so integrated. So I really like that harmony approach of, how do I make sure that you're kind of giving in the different areas? I heard a great analogy years ago about relationships with your partner, and how you should follow the 3-bucket philosophy. You have your bucket, their bucket, and the our bucket. And when people are contributing equally to each bucket, it feels good. And sometimes somebody might put all their effort into another bucket and not their own. And that's when things start to feel off. And so I think life is the same way. Like we have these different buckets that matter to us. And if we're not taking some time, doesn't need to be equal time, but if we're not contributing to them, we start to feel like we lose our identities a little bit, and we're not feeling like the whole person that we could be. And just like the stats for the number of employees you have to revenue, all the stats also show the more we take care of ourselves, the more the business grows too. So I appreciate that those stats exist.
Yeah, me too. It's great to hear that. It's aligned with kind of what my own thinking has been. And it's always nice to have something based in data too.
Yes. Yeah, there's something safe about like the numbers say it's true, so it's okay. Yeah. When, we ask everybody on the podcast where they put themselves on the powerful lady scale. If 0 or 1 is your average everyday human and 10 is the most powerful lady on the planet, how would you score yourself on average, and how would you score yourself today?
So it's very subjective. I mean, I would probably say somewhere in the 6 to 8 range. I know that through taking on this huge project, I have become a lot more empowered. I've matured tremendously. I have made a lot of sacrifices. With my time, especially, there's times when my friends are going out and doing something fun and I stay back because I know I have some deadline I have to meet. And that used to be really hard for me. I remember like crying because I wasn't able to do the thing I wanted to do. But at the same time, like it wasn't like a hard choice. Like I knew what I had to do. I had to work on this because that was what I committed to, and that was my responsibility. At the same time, there's a certain sense of loss in choosing where I prioritize my time. But in making those little sacrifices and staying committed, I think that I have become much more of a powerful lady on that scale. Probably at my best, maybe an 8 on that. I think I wouldn't go so far to say any above that, just because there's so much more room to grow. I do find myself struggling with like we talked about, that balance or putting time to different things and finding ways to make life really work well and to work just in a flow. So that's something I'm working on currently. But this whole project has really, I think, has shined a light onto who I am and has helped me to kind of better see what I need to work on as a person, not just really to the company, but on a level of like my own personal growth. It's definitely shined light on things that I guess I was ready to face, but sometimes it's like, I didn't want to see this in myself, but like, because I'm in the situation and I'm putting myself to the test and pushing it to like the brink, I like see these things in myself, like my kind of workaholic tendencies, my perfectionist tendencies, my sometimes like not showing interest in the things that, for instance, like showing interest in the things that my boyfriend is doing that he's so excited about. And I'm so focused on work that he's like, oh, I'm so excited about this thing I'm doing. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, oh, like, you're not excited with me. And then I've noticed that I'm like, wow, like, this is not, I need to work on this. Like, I have to find ways to, create a world that I want to live in, a life that I love, not just me as a working person, because that's not, a sustainable lifestyle. So, in that sense, I still have a lot to learn. I've learned a whole lot. I've developed myself as a person. I've grown as a person. I've learned to be much more, committed to my values. I've had I think I've been questioned and, doubted numerable times for what I'm doing. And every time I, get closer to the, like, no, I do know this and I'm going to keep doing it. And like, I'll show you, like, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, that kind of attitude. And it working out, and I continue to progress. I mean, it makes it so much more solid, and I feel I'm, able to expand even more. So, I think it's a sliding scale, but I've definitely been working up the ranks in the scale of 1 to 10, but still have some ways to go. Of course, I think I always will. Everyone always has room to improve. So I like being in that space of being always a learner, always a student.
What are the things that you take on to rejuvenate yourself or to continue educating yourself or to keep the inspiration? So it's kind of like 3 buckets of maintaining yourself, growing, and being inspired.
I like to stay active. Being outside in nature is like my number one way to rejuvenate. I love rock climbing, hiking, camping, running, disc golf, trail running, just being outside and finding ways to get my body moving is tremendously helpful. I find a lot of value in meditating and contemplating and just like kind of sitting with myself and just being, not taking that or not finding ways to use time to just be and not to be doing something that can be very difficult for me, because I feel like, if I have time, I need to be doing something, producing something, being productive. But to just let myself sit and be still is a great reset. So I guess it's in both ways. It's going and being very active and moving my body, and then also being very still in like my heart and my mind. Both of those makes a huge difference in being able to continue doing what I'm doing.
I love it. Well, for everyone who now wants their own tiny house and wants to follow you or support you, where are all the places that they can find to connect with you?
Well, our start engine page, we can start with there. That's www.startengine.com/Wilderwise. That's where our campaign is. That's where you can learn about us and how to invest. Our Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, I think, are all at Wilderwise Homes. YouTube, if you search Wilderwise Homes, it comes up as well. And I guess those are the main places online where you can find us. Hopefully we'll be at a trade show soon when they start happening again. So that's where you'll find us in person. And then traveling, I think we're going to be setting up kind of a tour schedule and a blog so that people can find out where we'll be next so they can actually meet us in person. I look forward to having more in-person events and not just being through a computer screen.
Yeah, for sure. And for people who are, wanting to get a tiny house themselves and they're looking to know what the investment is, about how much do you think your homes will end up being? Do you know yet?
We're looking at around $60,000 price point for our flagship model. And I think it's somewhere close to the average of what tiny houses can be. You can get some for a lot less, but they're more basic. And then you can get ones with full luxury upgrades in every way possible. And they're like twice that much. Yeah. So we're somewhere in the middle with a lot of really cool features. And there's a lot of information about the homes, as well as investing on our Start Engine page, and then about the homes on our website, which I forgot to mention, www.wilderwise.com. And we will be updating that site regularly as we complete the home and all the kind of updated specs and the tests that we do, and making sure that it's up to date. So that's where you can find all that information.
And that's a great price point, right? When you compare it to the average home price across the US and definitely in Southern California. I mean, that's usually a down payment for a house that's in Southern California.
Which is why it's a really great thing, especially in California. Because when you go out to some other states, I don't know exactly where, in the middle of the country, rural areas, someone's like, oh, $60,000 for 200, 300 square feet. No, like they don't see the benefit of that as much. But then if you're looking at California, I mean, that's a huge difference from what the average home price is here, which is probably several $100,000, if not more, closer to 500,000. So that's why it's great being in California, and why throughout California, we're seeing the accessory dwelling unit ordinances being passed in LA and San Diego and in Fresno and San Luis Obispo and a number of different areas that are now allowing tiny houses as ADUs. So you can put them in a backyard. It's huge for people that want to live in the tiny house, but also for people that own property and are having trouble paying their mortgage. They can have additional income coming in. So it's this really great symbiotic relationship between tiny house owner and landowner. And that is just this year. I mean, I think it was end of last year, early this year, that it really started picking up steam. So I think in the next few years, it's going to be catching on, and more places will allow it. And it's going to make a huge difference for a lot of people.
For sure. And then those of us that want a tiny home, how long would it take from when will people be able to start ordering from you? And how long do you think it'll take to get delivery?
So right now, I mean, everything's kind of on back order only because we continue to get pre-orders and we still are not set up to deliver yet. But we are building a pre-order list. So people can put down a $1,000 refundable deposit. They sign an agreement and they get put on our wait list. And we're expecting to start delivering that in Q3 of this year. And depending on how many we get, hopefully complete all of our pre-orders by the end of this year, early next year. With our current setup, we can build about 2 homes per month. And depending on the success of our Start Engine campaign and, how quickly we can grow or potentially get venture capital in the future, we'll be expanding that. So having a larger team, larger build crew, and a bigger facility. Because right now our facility is small. I mean, we set it up in the very early stages. So as what we could manage at the time. But what we've done with our manufacturing is make it as scalable as possible so that when we do have the resources and we're able to, and the demand is there, that we can grow it quickly, and we're prepared for that.
Well, I think it's all fantastic. Thank you so much for being a yes to Powerful Ladies and to being on the podcast today. I'm so excited for people to start seeing your tiny homes out in real life, and for people to start getting on your pre-order list and following you. And then everyone can join me in being little tiny house nerds as well. So thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a lovely conversation, just getting the brain juices flowing and connecting on things that are important to us. Communicating with other women about, what we're up to and our whys, and all of that is kind of a foundation for what keeps me inspired. And I feel better now than I did before I started this. So it's really wonderful to be able to speak with you and share and connect with you on these amazing topics that are so important to so many of us. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to today's episode. All the links to connect with Arya are in our show notes at thepowerfulladies.com/podcast. There you can also leave comments and ask questions about this episode. Want more Powerful Ladies? Come join us on Instagram at Powerful Ladies, where you can also find some free downloads to start living powerfully today. Subscribe to this podcast and help us connect with more listeners by leaving us a 5-star rating and review. If you're looking to connect directly with me, please visit karaduffy.com. I'd like to thank our producer, composer, and audio engineer, Jordan Duffy. Without her, this wouldn't be possible. You can follow her on Instagram at Jordan K. Duffy. We'll be back next week with a brand new episode. Until then, I hope you're taking on being powerful in your life. Go be awesome and up to something you love.